standing on the defensive. There's much stronger arguments to show the minig and the Hinu is correct, proper, because of the money before the Seder begins. Filling of the cases, pouring of the cases should be done by a member of the family, not by the head of the family. The one who conducts the Seder not to fill the cases of the others. Others should fill the cases, pouring the wine for the head of the family and for the rest of the table. If he's supposed to inform them, each one should drink at least a very case at one time. Remember, it must be the Seder. When you finish the Kiddush, sit down. The Kiddush is said standing. Again, the Kiddush said the toughest. Strengthen. Sit down for Kiddush. The Yaakov says the same Jewish standing. Just as we said in Brachos, there is no Heseder. Not being Heseder. Brachos said Haggadah. There's no question here of Heseder at all. Kiddush should be said, must be said standing at all times. Every time Kiddush is ever said, Shabbos, Pesach, Seder, Sukkot, Kiddush is said standing. You finish the Kiddush, sit down, carefully, relax, clean on the left side, and drink the Kais Yain. The amount to be drunk is at least more than half, at least. The size of the cup of these wine should be 5 ounces, at least 4.5 ounces minimum. They don't make it 4.5 ounces, so figure 5 ounce case would be one that's popular today, but not less than that. If a person finds a lot of difficulty with it, then he could take a 4 ounce case for the other 3 cases. Not to change the wine cup, it's supposed to be the same wine. And also to notify everyone that there must be kavanah. Mitzvah is slichus kavanah, according to many places. You must have kavanah that with this you are fulfilling the mitzvah of Abba cases. Each time you do the mitzvah, have in mind, Chavim with this I am fulfilling, Kayin the mitzvah of Abba cases. First case, of course, that kavanah you can mitzvah Kiddush plus the first of the other cases. And the same Haggadah have kavanah kain mitzvah Sipu Yitzis Mitzrayim. Speak about Yitzis Mitzrayim, it's always a mitzvah. Eating the matzah and the water is also mitzvah. Not also like the Rika mitzvah, the matzah, the Rika mitzvah that night with the matzah. First is that kavanah, can mitzvah of eating matzahs that night, and the water too, which is a mitzvah. And this refers to, all these refer to women also. Women are required, all these mitzvahs except for the Seder, as we said, is not customary for women. There are some days say that a person should try to drink dollar cases completely, not the red case. Of course, a person can do that, fine, but generally these days are different generations now. It's a generation where people are weaker, they cannot hardly take the red case. So hardly take for a person to fill himself with wine, first case, usually groggy for the second one, and be out for the third. Better to not to go over too much and do what is required of himself. First 3 cases, third case, the last, the 4 cases, only the last one you have to say Aharon, drink the entire case. And of course, throughout the Seder, everything should be explained to the student, those who are sitting around. So we finish the 14 rules, actually 13 rules of the Seder, as is mentioned in the Torah. 14th is called Yitzhak. Yitzhak means that if the former 13 rules are carried out, then it is accepted by Hashem, the Ava. Yitzhak, the Yimatri of Moshe Rabbeinu. Therefore it shows that a person can catch himself in the Sadiq because these are all mitzvahs of the Chachamim. The person can this is the Chachamim. So the mitzvah is accepted by Hashem. Zechet, the kind of mitzvah is Shlemus, mitzvah Pesach, which is the winter of the kiruv, Zechet, kiruv, Shlema, Ashka, Dolo, Kodet, Yas, Moshe, Kiruv, and let's make the Shleima.
Uchais Minei Chol HaMoed. Dinim of the Kedusha of Chol HaMoed. Chol HaMoed, which comes between first and last days of Yom Tov, Pesach and Sukkot, are considered Moed. It has the word Moed. The Vedic Kodesh says, but Moed means that it's Yom Tov. Chol HaMoed means that it's the minor part of the Yom Tov, but it is still Yom Tov. Therefore, it is also good to do certain kinds of malachos just as Yom Tov is. It is a little lower, therefore it is permissible to do certain other kinds of malachos. However, that which is forbidden is very strict, so much so, even more than Yom Tov itself. So it's not the question of committing an act where the penalty is death, if to go that far. It's even much stricter than that. The Gemara says that a person who desecrates the Kedusha of Chol HaMoed, it is as though he actually is Ovid of a Dezada. He worships idols. Worse than desecrating the Yom Tov. In addition, one who shows disrespect for Chol HaMoed, even though he may be very learned, he may have maybe filled, saturated with mitzvahs and nice and tevim, he has no part in Olam Haba. He loses his entire Gan Eden because of the fact he disrespected Chol HaMoed. What's meant by disrespecting Chol HaMoed? He does not show deference to it by wearing clothes for Yom Tov. He wears weekday clothes, that means he considers it just Chol alone. That kind of disrespect, worse than disrespecting Yom Tov. Because the things that are on a lower level require more chizuk, more strengthening, so as not to forget them completely. So here the din is so strict. The person who does mitzvahs, obeys all the mitzvahs of the Torah, but he goes dressed with weekday clothes on Chol HaMoed, he can lose everything. All is lost. He has no chelik in Gan Eden because of the fact that he does not respect Chol HaMoed with Shabbos Yom Tov clothes. In addition to, he should also show respect for it, since it is Yom Tov, Chol HaMoed. It is on Yom Tov, there are always special meals. Yom Tov meal is different than a weekday meal. Therefore, a person is supposed to show respect for it by having a Yom Tov meal. Normally, on Shabbos we have Sholosh Sudos, 3 meals. On Yom Tov we have a chiyuv, an absolute chiyuv for 2 meals. On Chol HaMoed, a person should strive to have at least 1 meal to show that it is Yom Tov. 1 meal is big. You will say a meal, you mean, of course, a legal meal, which means meat. A dairy meal is not considered a meal, except one time a year on Shavuos morning. But a Yom Tov meal means there should be a meat meal once a day on Chol HaMoed. Whether it's the afternoon meal or the evening meal, there should be 1 meal of meat each day on Chol HaMoed to show that this is Yom Tov, and this is how he is mechabed the Yom Tov. This says that a person is required to mechabed Yom Tov according to his power, whatever power he has. Dress with clothes that are special, Yom Tov clothes, to set the table as per a Yom Tov table. That way he shows that he considers Yom Tov as a major, considers Chol HaMoed as a major day, just as he does Yom Tov itself. As the Vedic Kodesh says, this is considered the crown of the king. You show respect for the crown of the king, in turn there is reward. The person does not show respect for the king's crown, actually there is a very severe penalty, chas v'shalom. However, Chol HaMoed, Hashem gave the power to decide which acts, which types of halacha are permissible and which are forbidden. So that, see that Chol HaMoed, again, why is it so strict? Why is it that the dinim of the Torah, a person who breaks the law written in the written Torah, Torah Shebiksav, one of the 613 mitzvahs, the penalty is Malchus, 39 lashes, or a little more strict. Torah Shebal Peret, the dinim of the Chachamim, there the penalty is death. Hashem is more particular about the laws of the Chachamim, the rabbis dinim, than about his own. Although, of course, all are from Hashem naturally. Therefore, here too, Hashem is more particular about the Chol HaMoed, which is given to the power of the Chachamim. Chachamim have the full power to dictate which work is permissible in Chol HaMoed and which is forbidden. Chachamim say the person should avoid work as much as possible, not too hard, to play hooky, to work much, unless of course he is forced, unless it is dovad ha'oved. If there is absolute loss involved, then the Chachamim permitted it. But it's allowed because of the fact that the Chachamim permitted it. So we see, getting down to the main basic point, the Chol HaMoed teaches us one basic item, Munah Tzadikim. Have complete implicit faith in tzaddikim, that their word is equivalent to the word of Hashem. The schus of that emunah, on this Yomtov, this Chol HaMoed, we'll see with our eyes the coming of Mashiach Zikenu, Binyan Beis HaMikdash, Pedah, Amen, Amen. L'chayis Tefillah. Since we have a number of items that we add, the davening that was changed, it's good to know, for the sake of those whose minds are not too settled and who have a overburdening of shikha, what is the halacha in case you forget to say what you're supposed to? For example, we have three items we started to say now. One is Meidet Tol instead of Moshe Feinstein. The second is the same bracha instead of the same talamata. The third, we add Yalabi Ovid. What if a person forgets to say Meidet Tol? What if he says Moshe Feinstein or Meidet Goshen? He mentions Geshen in davening. There, it depends upon where he reminds himself. If after he finishes Shemona Esrei, then he must daven the Shemona Esrei over again. If in the middle of Shemona Esrei, after the bracha Mechaye HaMesim, he must start from the beginning. But if he reminds himself before the bracha Mechaye HaMesim, and he wears along that bracha till the end, but before saying Mechaye HaMesim, then he starts from Atagi Baram Hashem, beginning of that bracha again. As long as he did not finish the bracha, he starts from Atagi Bar, says Meidet Tol, he's Yetzir. Once he says Baruch Atah Hashem Chai HaMesim, then he must start Shemona Esrei over again. The child is brought only, what if he says Baruch Atah Hashem? Does that mean then that he's lost already, or can he rectify it there? There are posek who say that he could, strangely, very strangely, though it would seem to be a definite hefsek in the middle of Shemona Esrei, he could finish Baruch Atah Hashem Landeni Chukecha, which is a posek in the Pilkut Test and Tulum. Landeni Chukecha, which means that he did not say the bracha, he did not finish that bracha Mechaye HaMesim, he can start from the Gibber. Of course, for self-Raslaka, this would be the Halacha the Meisim. A person could avoid starting Shemona Esrei over again. The only time he says it over is if he says Mechaye HaMesim, Baruch Atah Hashem Mechaye HaMesim. And of course, if he says Baruch Atah Hashem Mechaye, he reminds himself there, then he has to say it over again because he lost his chance to correct it with Abdeni. These are all very delicate halachas, and of course, it's better to avoid having to stand in the middle of Shemona Esrei and start reminding yourself all these complicated dinim. It's much cheaper, easier to concentrate and say Meidet Tol. Second item we add, changes the same bracha instead of the same talamata. On there, if a person reminds himself before the words Baruch Atah Hashem Avarech Hashonim, and he goes back to the same bracha, or Barech Aleinu. If he reminds himself after Avarech Hashonim, he goes back to Barech Aleinu. He reminds himself until the words Yihi Latzim Eifi, till those words at the end of Shemona Esrei, go back to Barech Aleinu. Once he has said those words, which means he has finished Shemona Esrei, just steps back 3 steps, it's too late to go back again. He's got to start Shemona Esrei over again. There again we have a shayla. Is that the end of Shemona Esrei or not? Or what else is? Because we walk back 3 steps and you finish that. There are some people who, at that point, Hashem Tzuri V'Gai Ali, they start special, private, individual tefillos, like his B'edus there. If they are in the custom of having his B'edus at that point, then Shemona Esrei is not over for them. There are certain ones who have tefillos then, but you cannot have during Shemona Esrei, you cannot daven, you cannot talk out in the rest of the day, you have to have panasa, you must have health and so on, that are not included in the Shemona Esrei itself. They say it there, at that point, just before walking back 3 steps. Which means they have not completed Shemona Esrei yet, and therefore, if they remind themselves there, they can still go back to Borei Chalinu, as long as they haven't started to walk back 3 steps. Normally, a regular person who says Shemona Esrei as is written, the minute he finishes that line, that's my feet. He has to go back. He has to go back to the beginning of Shemona Esrei. Third item, Yalav Yavai. There, a person reminds himself whether it is Shachas, Mincha, or Marev. This is different than the Shchedesh. The Shchedesh, the person forgets Yalav Yavai at night, he does not repeat it. Chol HaMoed is the same whether it's at night or the morning. Shachas, Mincha, or Marev, and forgets Yalav Yavai, he reminds himself before finishing Yigol Dasam Neifi, he goes back to the Tzei. He finished Shemona Esrei, he goes back to the beginning of Shemona Esrei. In the Birkas HaMuzon, in benching, you get to say Yalav Yavai. The minute he finishes the next bracha, he doesn't start the following bracha, there's a special bracha printed, some Sidurim, or you'll find it in the Shulchan Aruch, what to say if you forget Yalav Yavai right there. Once you started the next bracha, then Chol HaMoed it's lost. There's no more chance to go back. If you forget it completely, you remind yourself after it's over, don't go back to repeat Shemona Esrei. On Hentev, Shabbos is the only time that you go back to repeat Birkas HaMuzon for Yalav Yavai or Tzei. Iked is the person gets, it shows that he was not concentrating on what he was saying. The sign that he must do tshuva or tefillah. A person should do tshuva and tefillah. Tefillah is not what it should be, not the right kavanah, not the right concentration. He should do tshuva on his davening itself. To learn to think of the words he's saying, to create a pipeline leading from the brain, from the mouth to the brain. That what the mouth is saying, the brain should be aware of. Not to say it while a person is in a coma, or asleep, or in trance, or daydreaming. Think of the words he is saying, thereby to be sure that he will not forget, will not skip, will not miss out on anything. That kind of kavanah, he sure his tefillah will be accepted. We should be zechet to daven b'yemes with kavanah, and to have our tefillah is lutzen, korban, then in turn to be able to makir the korban ourselves. Mentioned many times before, and this is a major halacha that halavaya should receive the proper publicity to spread among those which penetrate the hearts of many leaders. Shaila about tefillin on Chol HaMoed. Like it's on halacha, of course, we cannot dare to enter into this machlekes ourselves. Just that we only want to stress the fact that this machlekes, whether tefillin is worn on Chol HaMoed or not, there are different days, and it would seem that it is machlekes between Kabbalah and halacha. In that case, then, the key is to follow the halacha, not the Kabbalah. It's like that sort. That is not so. The fact is that it's like it's between Kabbalah plus halacha against halacha alone. But let us say that it would be like if it's leisesa, which is decha leisesa alone. The fact is that the Kabbalah is osur, the hechleit, to put on tefillin on Chol HaMoed. Arizal says, opinion of Chiyav Misa. It shows a disrespect, a rebellion for Hashem. As a person puts on tefillin, it shows that he does not respect the kedusha of Chalamayid as Yentev. Where tefillin is potek, because Yentev itself is an ice, it's a symbol. You cannot take a different symbol, and you have one there already. Especially when this symbol is the presence of Hashem himself on Yentev. Now there are Rishonim with paskin that you do put on tefillin and Chalamayid. The Achronim follow these Rishonim. But it is brought, and this is positive, believe, without a question of doubt, that if these Rishonim would have been zeichet to have the Zayda Kodesh revealed in their time, there would be no trace of a doubt that they would have said also, they would have agreed also, that tefillin should not be worn on Chayil HaMayid. It would surely not go against the Shemei Arizal. Again, too, this is not a question of Chassidim and Misnagdim, because the Arizal, the only going to, is very strong on this point. The only going also, Asa is putting out tefillin on Chayil HaMayid. You see that there are many different versions on both sides. Those who are, we would say those who are zecher today should not put on tefillin, even if they already have put on tefillin. Ordinarily, you never follow your custom. But in this case, the risk, the danger is so great. Since the Lashon Chayav Misa is written about this, surely it would be beneficial for a person to avoid this risk, at least. Plus the fact that we find that the host of Aharon, Shulchan Aruch and Din, are very strong about this. There's no suffix, doubt about it. Especially too, since even those posek who say you do put on tefillin are very wary. They say put it on without a bracha, or avoid other things, or only a person who writes on Chalamayid, to chat them, them, or some say that only ones who are not married, and so forth. There's a lot of evasive attempts. And all of these are, of course, they are gedolim, kedoshim, tzadikim, tzadikim, goinim. Still, we say that Baruch Hashem, that we're zecher to the oil, the Zayda Kodesh, the Arizal, Hashem HaKodesh, Arizal, we're not put on tefillin, Chalamayid, therefore that surely is the meaning that we should be zecher to follow. The second important item, major item, is the Isser of shaving on Chalamayid. We once brought, the other day, there was brought the question about a person who had, the Shiloh brought the other day about a person who had a very serious skin disease. And if he would not shave, he would have a infection, a facial infection that could have done him a lot of harm. He asked the Shiloh, among the Gedolim, really our place at that time in different countries, and in an assembly of these Rabbonim, the Gedolim, they decided that there was no way to give this person a heter. No matter what the price he had to pay, no matter how much he suffered, there's no way to be matir shaving on Chalamayid, even if it means a health problem. The Derech Godel, they said that if he locks himself in a room and stays without going outside at all, the higher period of Yentev, then he'd be allowed to. That's the Derech Godel Miyad. So you see that shaving on Chalamayid is something that is very difficult to matir. Though today, for some mysterious reason, maybe perhaps the generation will change something, there are certain Rabbonim today who the derech matir for those in business. In any event, if they have broad shoulders, they can afford to say it. But at all possible, a person should strive to avoid this risk. And also to know that Erev Yentev is surely, at least Erev Yentev, Erev the second day's Yentev, is surely Kolshkein, no mitzvah to shave the covered Yentev. On the contrary, it's a disgrace. If the sake is because of Yentev, that's a disgrace rather than a covet. Because a person would come and show that he broke the Isser for the sake of Yentev. It's a mitzvah of Lo Baveda. So at least if a person is forced to shave for the sake of business, where he might find a heter for that, but not for the sake of Yentev. Erev Yentev, not to shave at all, at least. To cut one's nails is also usher chalamayid, except for a woman has to go tefillah, mikveh, she's allowed to. In certain cases where a person cut his nails erev yontiv, for some reason he's got to cut them again before the first day's yontiv, and I have to cut a chalamayid, then he may, in certain extreme cases. Otherwise, if he did not cut his nails erev yontiv, they're very long now, and this is a special punishment. This is the reason, in fact, why one cannot shave on chalamayid and one cannot cut his nails. The time for this halacha is no shaving chalamayid, no cutting nails, because if we would allow him, the person would be very lax erev yontiv, and in the first days of yontiv, he'd say, worst comes to worst, I can always shave after the first day's yontiv and have at least the second day's yontiv clean. So neglect preparing yourself, grooming himself for the first day's yontiv. Chama said in that case that we asser any of this shaving or nail cutting on chalamayid itself. Except that by nail cutting, Tosfos brings a little heter. Those who did cut the nails out of yontiv, that in case of emergency is permissible. Otherwise, it should be definitely avoided. Again, even though it would seem that for the second day's yontiv, if you want to show the cover and cutting the nails, that is not so. Covered of yontiv is to fulfill the mitzvah of Hashem of that yontiv, and that's the biggest covered possible. You should be zecher to kayin mitzvah yontiv, mitzvah ois of yontiv, chalamayid, shleimus zecher that it should become a full yontiv, seeing Dias Mashiach Kenu and in this mikdash, Kavas Pabones, Gigas Hamayid, Eida Armenia. Nilchais Yontiv Dinei Erev Tavshil. Yontiv comes out Erev Shabbos, whether it's one day, the first day Yontiv, or the second day Yontiv. For example, Yontiv comes out on Friday and Shabbos, so Erev Shabbos is Yontiv, or Yontiv comes out on Thursday and Friday. Erev Shabbos is Yontiv, the second day, which is lighter than the first day. In either case, it is forbidden for a person to cook on Yontiv the first day to cook for the second day, because there is a difference. You're not allowed to cook on Yontiv for the sake of a weekday. The second day is Sveika de Yoma. Really, it's a weekday. What days it because of the doubt? Definitely, there are no 2 days Yontiv. One of the 2 days is a weekday. You cannot cook on Yontiv for the weekdays. That's why to cook on the first day Yontiv for the second day is absolutely forbidden. You can only cook after the first day is over at night for the second day. By the same token, you're not allowed to cook on Yontiv for Shabbos, even though Shabbos is holier. You're not cooking Yontiv for Shabbos because the person would neglect everything and spoil the Yontiv. Therefore, the din is you cannot cook a yontiv for Shabbos unless you make an Erev Tavshil, Erev Yontiv. Erev Tavshil means that you have already started to cook for Shabbos legally, Erev Yontiv, when it's a weekday, or Chalamayid, then Erev, you mix with that the cooking of Yontiv, together becomes legal to cook for Shabbos. Of course, this means only if the cooking is done early enough before Shabbos, not just the last minute where there's no time to eat it. But mixing the yontiv cooking with the Shabbos cooking together. It must be cooked by day, even late afternoon, but still enough time to grab a bite between the completion and the yontiv, or at least part of it. Now the Erev Tavshil is made Erev Yontiv. There must be two things there. It must be a matzah the size of the conveyor, which means a whole matzah plus something cooked. According to the number, a cooked egg is also kosher. Other places do not bring that. So a person may use a matzah and a cooked egg. The reason is that you're supposed to have something done before Yontiv. What is done? You have something baked, matzah is baked, or for shvuos and sukkahs you can have a challah. Preferably still a matzah is used all year round for the Erev Tavshil. It means that something was baked before Yontiv, and a cooked item, like an egg, Or, according to most, what is done is fish, cooked fish. It means that you're allowed to cook on Yontif for the sake of Shabbos then. Now this native tavshilin must be eaten on Shabbos for Shalashudas, or at the Shabbos meal in the morning, at least. Preferably the last meal, which is Shalashudas, unless it's eaten in Shul, of course, then you eat native tavshilin on Shabbos morning. In other words, the matzah with the fish or the egg can be eaten at the last Yontif meal, which is Shabbos morning. This, either the egg or the fish, if possible, the fish is preferable, should be put into a plastic bag or even a plate and put into the refrigerator so it stays fresh, so it could be eaten on Shabbos. If that item is lost, if it is destroyed, if it's not edible, and of course there is no further possibility of cooking. The item must be in existence in order to be able to, at the time of cooking on Yontif. Then only is it admissible to cook on Yontif for the sake of Shabbos. Now there are cases where certain individuals, say the elders of the city, elders make an edav and the zakir through another person, zakir others. The zakir that in case it happened that somebody forgot to make an edav for some accidental reason, then the edav, by being a zakir, all those in the vicinity, the community, they are zakir with this edav and they are allowed to cook. So if a person forgot to make an edav and the edav did not forget to make an edav, then they can cook. The other way around, and the edav was in trouble. They will teach him a lesson not to forget. Every person should strive to make the edav himself, not to forget to make the edav. This should be done in the afternoon just before Yontif begins. And this applies to every edav Yontif when Yontif itself comes out on edav Shabbos. We should be zecher to mitzvah edav b'shleimus, because edav the Zohar Kodesh says the union of kapora for the Jews. The word edav is the word vayav. Vayav ad Hashem upon vayikra. It's the likim u'midah sharachmem. Vayav edav is begimatria chesed and gevura, which itself is tiferes. Edav is two words ayin beis, which is chesed of niv, which is gematria gevura. It's the union of tiferes. Mixture, the greatest mixture, is the yichud, merging of these two. And that is what is mamtek all the dinim, the tokas dinim. We should be zecher with this mitzvah, the kol mitzvahs, the tokas dinim, shleimus, and see with our eyes the geula shleimus with Elias Mashiach Tkenu. Okay, Shabbos dinei eruvei techumim. It is that a person on Shabbos is restricted also where he's allowed to walk. Within the city limits, a person can walk an unlimited amount. Outside of the city limits, on Yetzei Ishvin Kaimai, being a Shabbos, a person is supposed to go out of the city on Shabbos past the Tchum Shabbos. Tchum Shabbos is the boundary in Shabbos. Up to that point, a person can go and no more. That Tchum is 2,000 ames. 2,000 ames, a little less than a mile. That Tchum, past that 2,000 ames, Shiloh Machlokes, it was the Arizal, the Aharon, in the event it's Chilul Shabbos. Find that the Gemara says about the story of Rav Meir and Acher, his Rebbe. Acher was turned away. He was called Acher when he left. He lost his emunah. One Shabbos he was riding on a horse. Acha was riding a horse, and the mayor was walking along besides, listening to Acha speaking the Torah. He was enthralled. He was captivated by his words. Because Acha had a mouth that could speak Torah. That's what he was, a relation with Abuya. He was a Mekiva's Chaver. He was a mayor's Rebbe. You can imagine how ready he was, just that he had fallen through this sad case of his ascent. He'd gone too high into the bright light of heaven. Too high, he'd penetrated too deeply into heaven, and there he had this catastrophe. Which, of course, in the end, still turned out well, because he was supposed to know him, read him. He was taken out of Gehenna, and to get it eventually. At this point of the story where Acha was off, Acha was Shabbos, and Kvida, he was riding on a horse. Meir was so captivated he didn't realize how far he was walking. And Acha said to Meir, turn back. Go back, because you have just reached the boundary of Chum Shabbos. You cannot go any further. How did Acha know? He was so wise, he knew by the footsteps. The steps of the horse, he was able to count off measurements. The horse is not exactly an omelet each step, but he knew by the fractional amounts of each step of the horse exactly when it came to 2,000 ames. If this was Chum Shabbos, he must go back. His words were, return, go back. But Meir cried out, so Acha, you too go back. You also go back. Go back, look where you've gone to, so far away, go back. I beg of you, return. Acha very sadly replied, you can't go back, it's too late. So I heard a voice from heaven which said, Shulu Bonim Shebovim, all you sinners, children of mine in heaven, who have committed sins, return to me, Hashem says. Chutz me Acha. The voice from heaven saying, everybody except Acha is accepted. Meir said, despite this, I hope he came. Rosenfeld says, Rosenfeld says, return, do tshuva. Heaven is going to say, don't do tshuva. I won't accept you to do tshuva. Even Acha, no matter how great he was, no matter how far he had fallen, there was a tremendous crash he had from such great height to a point of kfida and murder as being honest. Still, everyone can do tshuva except Acha. There is no shlichus. There's somebody excluded from tshuva. The answer is, but for Acha it's more difficult, because anybody does tshuva, all the time is sinus. One does tshuva, the gate is open wide, he's assisted from heaven. Except Acha. Acha, you're on your own. You want to do tshuva? You have to accept the kavayacho Hashem says. That's a standing rule. Acha didn't realize this. A number of things happened. Acha in his greatness, he didn't realize, wasn't Zechad understanding the depth, the extent, the chastei Hashem. I mentioned it, instead the story turned out. In the end, he was Zechad. But that's an example just of Chum Shabbos. Of course, when a person walks 2,000 ames, he still could walk more. Because every person owns his own 4 ames. 4 ames around him are his own. A person walks outside of 2,000 ames, he still has 4 ames more. Rosenfeld says, imagine what that means. 2,000 ames, it's Shnei Alfen, Leif Chochma, Leif Bina. Alfen of Chochma, meaning Yud-K, a person has, in that 2,000 ames, he's still close to Hashem. Going outside of 2,000 ames on Shabbos, he has deserted, he has abandoned Hashem, Kaviyachol. Shabbos, abandoned Hashem. A person should know that even after the 2,000 ames have gone out, you still have Dalet ames, Yud-K, Vav-K, still Hashem is with you. See, you go down to the depth, the abyss, the lowest pit. Where is Hashem? Right in your Dalet ames. Hineka, right there with you. Not far. You don't have to go far at all. Right with you in your Dalet ames to find Hashem. Still have the Kedusha there. One turn. Come back. Shuvu. Now, again, back to Halacha. It said that a person has up to these 2,000 ames to walk. However, there is a din. This, of course, is if, let's say, he lives in a farmhouse, suburbs, outside a small town, not a town, but he's a farmer living out sticks. He lives, let's say, somewhere, a long stretch of land with no homes at all. A stretch between Kiev and Uman. Long stretches of land without homes. He has a little farmhouse there, and every once in a while he walks, exclusive walking to the Oida is the light of lights going to the Arizal Sea. That's where he lives. However, on Shabbos, he cannot walk more than 2,000 ames away from Menachem Mendel, his place. His city is his house. His residence is the home in which he lives. What is the extent of that home? The extent of that home is the house itself. From the four walls of that house, he has 2,000 ames. A person lives in a city, he has 2,000 ames from the walls of the city. Well, the imaginary walls of the boundary of the city. City limits, he has 2,000 ames more outside of the city in all four directions. But we come to a difference to what's known as karfef. Don't know what karfef is? We'll skip that. A person, again, lives in a private home, farmhouse, and he has those 2,000 ames. Every city is given a karfef, which means an additional part of the people of the city, additional 70 2/3 amma. Outside of the city, that's called, belongs like the yard, the backyard of the city. It belongs to that city. It's still part of the city. It's a chutzah. A person has a house and a lawn. This is the lawn of the city. This karfef is 70 2/3 ames, which means that in essence he actually has 2,070 2/3 ames as the limit that he can walk outside of the city in any direction. This, at the end of, when he starts counting this, the 2,000 ames, the end of these, 70 2/3 ames. Now, this again applies to all four sides of the city. If you have, for example, two cities that are within this amount of each other, each one has a 70 2/3 ames. Let's say you have 141 ames, one city to the next. You're allowed to go to the next city too. You have further. It becomes one city, becomes united as one. You have a lot of cities with only that short distance between them, 141 ames. It's all considered as one single city. As long as there's more than that 70 2/3 ames between each one, for each one, between each one, a total of 141 and 1/3, right, ames. A little over that. And then it becomes two separate sections, and your 2,000 ames would end at whatever point in the next city you reach. You're right in the middle of the city, right there at the end of your 2,000 ames. So the limit, the borderline of a person in walking outside of his city on Shabbos or outside of his home, he lives in a farmhouse out in the fields, is 2,000 ames. Where that ends, he still has his 4 ames. Now, if a person has a necessity, finds it necessary to walk on the Shabbos outside of the 2,000 ames, up to 4,000 ames, then there is a tikkun called Eduvei Techumen. This will continue with Shulchan. We should be zeichet to be sakin our Techum Shabbos. We should be zeichet to stay within the Daled Ames of Yusha, Daled Ames of Tahara, Shemayim, and see our eyes to be us, tzadik, Eidah, the spread of the light, Eidah is Yerushalmi. Shabbos Dinei Eduvei Techumen. A person is not allowed to go outside of the city limits more than 2,000 ames besides the karfef, which is 70 2/3 ames. Up to the 2,000 ames, that's the limit. He has his 4, now what ames there is 4 ames, that's it, no matter what the cause, reason, emergency is. However, we have a din of Eduvei Techumen, which means that if before Shabbos he's aware of the fact that he must go outside of the city, he's got to go to a distance of 3,000 ames, then he's allowed to make an eruv, which means he goes outside of the city to the 2,000 ames limit. There he takes an eruv, which is, again, chalas, not just the size that is enough for 2 sudas, 2 meals. Wasn't shtei sudas, not matzahs, but wasn't shtei sudas. Which is the best thing, of course, is matzahs. It's less. The eruv is destroyed by somehow the eruv is stolen or destroyed, and the whole thing is bottled. It's worthless. The eruv is in effect only as long as the food is in effect. It still exists. The best thing, of course, is matzahs. Takes these matzahs, makes the bracha on mitzvahs eruv. With this, he now declares his residence at this point, 2,000 ames outside of the city. Let's say this is to the east side of the city. So to the mizrach, to the east, he now has a new residence, 2,000 ames. Which means that's the point of his residence. There he is allowed 2,000 ames any direction. Now, he can then go further east up to 2,000 ames, which means that he will have his 3,000 ames from the city covered. This is good, this is permissible, only if it's for the sake of a mitzvah, not for business. Mitzvah means, for example, he's got to go there for a meeting about putting shuyim or gathering stucco, or there's a shul at that spot and there's a guest drasha, darshan is coming, Magid is coming to speak, as the Gemara says. And he wants to listen on Shabbos to this drasha. There's a special shiur given then. He's allowed to make an eruv to go outside of the city limits through this eruv. At the same time, he must be aware of the fact that he's not restricting himself. Because since this is his residence, he's allowed only 2,000 ames in all directions, which means that when he comes back into the city, and his house is in the middle of the city, he can't get back there on Shabbos anymore. He's allowed exactly 2,000 ames back. Exactly, not 2,000 ames plus cities and so forth that he had before. The whole city before was his residence. Today, not anymore. Today, the residence is that one spot where he put the eruv. So exactly 2,000 ames from there is where his mission to walk ends. You get back to the city limits, and that's it. If his house, let's say, is 100 ames inside the city limits, he would make the eruv 1,900 ames outside of the city, so he can stay in his house. If his house is further in, he's cutting himself off from staying in his house for Shabbos. This is the day of most posek. So Halacha, the person has to be careful making an eruv not to do himself more harm than good. However, in any event, we know that the eruv is made only for the sake of a definite mitzvah, not for the sake of a davar or a shus. Zecher to Mali mitzvahs, the mitzvah of eruv especially, which means the nizur, nation chesed chavruta, and tokas dinim, which means zecher is tokas dinim, and vias Mashiach Tzidkim eruv. Shabbos. Night of Mitzvah Shabbos. Zayde Kodesh says that Shabbos Kodesh is mashpia for the entire following week. The way a person's mekadesh the Shabbos, the extent that he keeps the Shabbos Kodesh, that's how much shefa, R Nosson, and shefa, and tev he receives for the following week. Because the whole bracha that the week receives comes from the Shabbos Kodesh. So we have to do something about drawing that shefa, the mamshech that shefa from Shabbos to the week. This is done by being meisif the Kodesh ala chel. Just like a meisif mechel ala Kodesh on Friday, we add a piece of Friday to Shabbos, make the Shabbos longer. So too do we add Kodesh from Shabbos on Chol. Add a little piece of Shabbos onto the weekday, and that bit of Shabbos helps to be mamshech the shefa, the kedusha of Shabbos for the rest of the week. The question is, how much of this Shabbos do we have to be mamshech? How much is the taste of Shabbos on the Chol? At what time aside from the fact that you have to have Pesach Shabbos, question of Shemitah Shabbos itself. When is it permissible for a person to do Malacha? When is Shabbos officially considered over? Here we have different days in Shulchan. The Gemara speaks about Gimel Kreichov, 3 stars. When a person sees 3 stars in the sky, he knows that it is definitely night. That's Tzeisak Kreichov, which is definitely night. The question is only what kind of stars. There are stars that are seen by day also. The answer is there are different sizes of stars. There are generally stars come in 3 sizes. There are Kechavim Gedolim, Kechavim Beinanim, Kechavim Ketanim. The way they sell in the store, small, medium, and large, they have the stars also, these 3 different sizes. The large stars are ones that are seen by day also. So, if a person sees these large stars at night, it does not mean at all that Shabbos is over. It's still Shabbos. What then? He has to see medium-sized stars, then it's considered night. How can a person tell if it's medium? He doesn't have what to compare to it. The difference in size to the naked eye is so tiny, infinitesimal, a person could never tell between medium and large or small. So therefore, the Tiferet Yisrael says, this Eitzah is a person should not consider it night until he sees at least 6 stars. He sees 2 sizes. He sees 3 stars of each size. He doesn't know whether it's large or medium is small. But one thing he's sure of, that there are 3 medium. That way, he is positive that the 3 medium stars, at least 3 billion, are there. And the Bigodim, the Yosef also follow that thought. That's an innovation, a chiddush, where a person can be sure that he has at least the Gimel Kechavim Beinanim. Taisus brings a man in town who says that also the days the Gemara brings that the time for Tzeisak Kechavim generally is 4 miles. A mile is considered 18 minutes. Generally, 4 miles. The word mile, of course, doesn't necessarily mean what we know today as mile. Mil could be any measure of space, area. 4 miles times 18 is 72 minutes. Plus our Kabbalah, this is 4 times 18 Chai. 72 is Chesed. This is the Chassidut that come from the Shabbos Kodesh. Chesed is Nimshach. This is the space, time between the Shkia is a Hamas sundown, and Tzeisak Kechavim. So, if a person that cannot see stars because it's cloudy, or his vision is poor, he cannot judge, he can tell by the clock. Times it, that's 4 times 18, it's 72 minutes after sundown. When the time says it is Vadai, Laila, it's definitely night. Even if you don't see stars, we are sure the stars are there because the night does not take longer than 72 minutes. That means then that generally a person doesn't have to walk outside at night to look at the stars. One who keeps the 72 minutes is positive that it's Meitzai Shabbos. This is the Minig Yisrael Kamat. Most of the Judaism, most of the Shemini Shabbos, most of the those that mean the Shemayim, generally keep this Zman of the Beinatam. Well, the Minchas Kayin asks a very simple question. Is it logical to say that Beinatam is fighting against the Gemara? It's very illogical. In fact, it's impossible. And the Tam says that you have to wait 72 minutes. But surely he couldn't say that if you have Gimel Kechavim Beinanim or Ketanim in the sky, it happens to be 60 minutes after Shkia, would he say that it is still Shabbos because you haven't had 72 minutes pass by? He says, surely this means in case that you don't have the ability to see, to test, to find, to seek out these stars because of whatever reason, the Tam says, I'm giving you a safe time, a safe span of 72 minutes. And this, the Chavetz Chaim Zal accepts also as logical, so that there is a possibility sometimes that a person could, let's say in case of emergency, could accept that he sees that the sky is clear, he sees a lot of stars. So the sky is filled with stars, as does happen. And he sees that it's less than 72 minutes, and he could end the Shabbos then, legally, even according to the Menachem Shita, Menachem himself, that is, according to the interpretation of the answer of Nechos Kain. This would explain why the Yidei and Mushleimin in Yerushalmi end the Shabbos before 72 minutes. If we're going to take 72 minutes as a Zman, we're taking throughout the entire world. Shabbos B'chalal, the sky is different than it is in the rest of the world. The sky is a clearer, deeper view. And as you saw in Yerushalmi, the stars gather much greater number. There's a greater Kedusha there. The always stands for Kedusha, the Amelia Shemala. The person can see stars in Yerushalmi much better and clearer than outside Yerushalmi. Plus the fact that in Yerushalmi there is a Zmanas Kamat Gehedet Ayin. Dusk till dark is so quickly, such speed, so rapidly that there's no long period of time that the light fades away. When the sun sets, very quickly it becomes dark. So that the person can see the sky filled with stars in Yerushalmi at about 30 to 35 minutes after the Shkia. The vast majority, Yerushalmi consider this Zman from Leitzai Shabbos, not because they're chud against the Menachem. Obviously, because they follow the logic of the Minchas Kain, the Arizal at this, the Menachem would surely agree with this simple statement in the Gemara that Gimel Gechavim designates Leitzai Shabbos even with the Teshuva Shabbos. How we said is in Yerushalmi, and if a person wants to be sure, if a person wants to keep the Shabbos less than 72 minutes, welcome to go to Yerushalmi and settle there, and you save yourself 10 minutes. Many of it, we should be zochet to keep Yerushalmi fully in. You should keep Shabbos Kodesh in Yerushalmi. Agav, of course, the Arizal Yeshiva, they keep the Shabbos until at least a quarter after 1, which is about 75 minutes past the Shkia. There, the Arab clock, 12 o'clock the Shkia, and Shabbos ends there about a quarter past 1, not before. So they still have the time Shita plus. There are some even there who keep it 90 minutes past the Shkia. In any event, everyone is needs of L'Shem Shemayim. We should all be zochet to spend our Shabbos Kodesh in Yerushalmi, like Kodesh Yisrael Abnuya, V'yas, Mashiach Tzidkenu, and there's English later. We deviate today from the regular Shia due to a special occasion. Today is the yahrzeit, the regular yahrzeit for his father, Final Bracha, Harav Rabbi Nachman, and Rabbi Tzigneir. Hashem should have an aliyah. This aliyah should help us. It should be a melas yesha that the shpacha itself should be zochet to simchas, nachas, yeshuas for the Klal Yisrael, boys for the Chayil Yisrael. The ikar point is that on the day of the yahrzeit, as is known, the neshama has an automatic aliyah. The neshama is deserving, of course. Each year, the neshama has an aliyah in Gened. And this aliyah is primarily due to mitzvahs that are done. However, the Mesim Chavshu, the Gemara says that a person dies, he is free, he is exempt from mitzvahs against his will. That's why it says in Pirkei Avos that Yofer Shachas Teshuva Metzilum Hazeh, that 1 moment, 1 hour of tshuva, of mitzvahs, in this world, is worth more than a whole everlasting in Eden. Because there, no matter how long a person is there, no matter how great a person is, he cannot acquire mitzvahs anymore. It's too late. The time to get mitzvahs is here. Therefore, we can understand why the Gemara says, Kabed Savicha, respect, to give honor to a father. And how can a person give honor to a father? How is it possible ever for anybody to repay in a small measure that sacrifice that a father has for a son? It's impossible. The Shema Kodesh says that nowhere else can we find a son, not a son, but sons. In fact, 10 sons. 10 sons cannot support a father in the manner, the kindness, the consideration, the devotion that a father supports 10 sons. One father could support 10 sons more easily, with a greater sense of devotion and dedication than 10 sons could support a father. In that, there is no way that children can ever really repay to a father to give him kavod. It's impossible. They lived for years, for decades. They couldn't repay even in part the sacrifices the father made for them. So what is kavod asavicha?